I'm Clara, 31 years old, living in Portland and working in media design at an advertising firm. For the past 11 months, I've barely spent anything on myself, saving over $9,200, all for one purpose: to plan a special birthday trip for my mother, Margaret, who's about to turn 65. I chose Santa Barbara, California, a graceful coastal city with mild weather and historic hotels nestled along the edge of the Pacific. My mother had mentioned it often after retiring, but never had the means to visit. I wanted to make her dream a reality, to give her true rest after years of hardship for our family. The trip would last 6 days, at the end of April, right when the flowers were in full bloom. I booked a boutique oceanfront hotel 4 months in advance, with a private terrace and outdoor fireplace. Using credit card points and rewards from a business trip abroad last year, I upgraded all 3 of us to business class flights: my mom, myself, and my younger sister. Brittany, 26 years old, currently freelancing and living with my mother. I handled everything, from planning each meal, scheduling spa treatments, to arranging a sunset boat tour, vineyard visits, and stops at local art galleries. I selected restaurants that matched my mom's low-sodium diet, while still trying to find food that suited Brittany's picky taste, who still ordered like a child, even in her mid-20s. I even prepared a printed itinerary with maps and emergency contact numbers. I packed it all into a cream-colored document pouch, personalized with my mom's name in calligraphy. Inside was also a holiday card I'd written the previous Christmas but never sent. "Thank you for always being so strong. Now it's time for you to be cared for a little." I knew I was overworking myself, but I kept telling myself that if I planned thoroughly enough, thoughtfully enough, then this trip would be a turning point. Something all 3 of us would remember forever. Deep down, I believed that if I could make my mother feel loved, valued, then maybe all those years of raising 2 daughters alone would feel a little lighter. I didn't tell anyone exactly how much I'd spent. I simply said I saved a little. My mother contributed about $1,300, and Brittany said she'd cover a few meals, though I knew that usually meant 1 cafe lunch. I didn't need repayment. I just wanted them to be happy. I wanted to see my mom smile as she sipped wine by the ocean, and I wanted Brittany to look up from her phone long enough to watch the glowing sunset I'd reserved a table for 3 months ago. On a Thursday night, I knocked on Mom's door to tell her everything was booked. I had prepared a set of small cards with flight times and a note: "This is the vacation you've always deserved." Mom smiled softly. Brittany exclaimed, "Oh wow, you planned this like a global business summit." I laughed, but something inside me stiffened. A quiet chill ran up my spine. A question surfaced. Had I over-prepared for people who didn't really want to be part of this? I pushed the thought aside. I had planned too carefully to allow myself to doubt now. I still remember that first morning in Santa Barbara. Sunlight filtered through the curtains like a soft promise of something good. I woke up early, went down to the lobby, and ordered a classic California breakfast tray: a butter croissant, tropical fruits, and an espresso for Mom, with a matcha latte for Brittany. When I returned to the room, I had already set everything on the glass table by the window, so the 2 of them could enjoy breakfast with an ocean view. Mom stepped out of her room with sleepy eyes, but a gentle smile. Brittany squinted and mumbled, "Are you seriously starting the vacation with an itinerary again?" I kept my tone light. "No schedule, today's wide open. If you 2 want to stroll through Old Town, just let me know so I can book the taxi." Mom sipped her coffee and looked at me, her voice soft but sharp enough to sink in. "Clara, your sister has a point. Don't turn this trip into some planning conference. Let things flow a little." I smiled and nodded, but inside, an all too familiar feeling crept back in. That no matter how much love I put into something, it always seemed too much. I was used to that. Since childhood, I was the one cleaning the kitchen, folding clothes, finishing homework without reminders. Brittany was different. When she got a B in math, Mom threw a small celebration. When I earned a full-ride scholarship to a top university in Seattle, Mom said, "Just don't get cocky, keep working hard." I didn't blame her. Mom always worried more about Brittany. She had a serious case of pneumonia at 6, and ever since, Mom treated her like fragile glass. I was the healthy one, the one who didn't need tutoring, attention, or supervision. Eventually, I became the self-sufficient child, and apparently that meant I didn't need nurturing either. That never changed. When I bought my first car with a mix of scholarship funds and side jobs, Mom didn't ask a thing. But when Brittany needed a new phone, Mom messaged me, "Clara, your sister's in a tight spot. Can you help her out?" I had hoped this trip would bridge the gap. I thought if I created a space beautiful and comfortable enough, we'd enjoy it as 3 grown women. I was wrong. That evening, we went to a seaside Italian restaurant I'd booked 2 months in advance. Brittany looked at the menu and frowned. Why don't they have pepperoni pizza or at least some kind of cream pasta? I held back, replying gently, "They focus on traditional Italian dishes. There's butternut squash gnocchi or wild mushroom risotto, both things you've liked before." Brittany shrugged. "Whatever, I'll just get a salad." Mom didn't say a word. She patted Brittany's hand and said, "As long as you eat something, don't force yourself." I clenched my jaw. Why was it that Brittany, refusing to try something new, was something I had to accommodate? When dessert arrived, I placed a strawberry panna cotta in front of Mom, complete with a tiny birthday candle. She smiled, but Brittany jumped in. "Anyone want to hit a club tonight? I saw this DJ set on TikTok. Looks fire." Quietly reminded her, "We have the boat tour in the morning, remember?" Brittany burst out laughing. "Oh my God, who wakes up early on vacation to sit on a boat, unless it's for a nap?" I didn't respond. That cold feeling spread in my chest. I glanced at Mom, hoping she'd at least gently remind Brittany to be respectful, but Mom just quietly cut into her dessert, eyes drifting toward the ocean. Back at the hotel, I sat alone on the balcony. The sound of waves crashing below couldn't drown out the thoughts racing through my head. I thought about the day I called the bank and transferred my entire savings onto a separate card dedicated to this trip. No one asked me to. No one forced me to handle every meal, every hotel, every stop. I did it all hoping to earn some recognition. A moment of being seen as a daughter who tried. Instead, I felt like an event planner, judged when the schedule didn't meet the preferences of familiar clients. I didn't say anything the rest of that evening, but deep down something became very clear. The unfairness in how I was treated wasn't just a detail, and maybe it never had been. I should have seen it coming, not when everything fell apart, but from the moment I announced the plan. That week, I sent an email with the detailed itinerary to Mom and Brittany titled Santa Barbara Trip, Celebrating Mom's Birthday. I attached a clearly designed PDF outlining each day, locations, times, health notes, light and relaxing activities. I even added illustrated images and captions like, "Flexible depending on weather conditions." 2 hours later, Brittany replied, "Why did you choose a hotel without a saltwater pool? I read that saltwater is better for skin." I politely explained that the hotel pool uses a mineral filtration system that doesn't dry out the skin, and the beach is actually just a 3-minute walk away. But only an hour after that, Mom messaged me privately. "Clara, Brittany is a point. You should have asked the family before booking the hotel." I sat in front of the screen, gripping my computer mouse. I hadn't chosen that hotel just for its location. I'd also secured a special discount through an old colleague, saving nearly $700 for all 6 nights. But apparently, none of that mattered as much as Brittany's feelings about the pool. I just smiled to myself, reassuring that these minor things would blow over once the trip started. I was being naive. The very first day we arrived in Santa Barbara, just after checking in, Brittany rolled her suitcase straight into the ocean view bedroom I had reserved for Mom. When I reminded her, "That's for Mom, remember," Brittany paused and said, "Whatever, but you should have been clearer. I thought it was first come, first served." Mom just chuckled. "All the rooms are the same. Girls can sleep anywhere." I swallowed my frustration and dragged my suitcase into the smallest room, next to the maintenance area with a window facing the brick wall behind the hotel. That evening, I suggested we visit the night market by the beach. There'd be live music, hand-painted art, and a little crepe shop Mom used to love. Brittany made a face. Night markets are all just old crafts. A friend of mine just told me about a rooftop bar on the hill with a city view. Why don't we try something new? I asked, which friend? Istavana. We met on Twitter, we chat about fashion and tarot. She lives here now and says the DJ there is really chill. I froze. Savannah? I'd never heard that name before. I was about to say no, but Mom chimed in. Sounds fun, Clara. We could use a change of pace. I can't do strong cocktails, but seeing the city lights could be nice. So once again, I adjusted the schedule, canceling our crepe reservation and losing a $25 deposit, all to follow a spontaneous suggestion from a stranger my sister had never even met in real life. The next day, I woke up early and reserved a cabana at the rooftop pool. A quiet area, no kids running around, offering afternoon tea for older guests. I picked the one near the white umbrellas with soft breeze and gentle sun, so Mom could read without straining her eyes. When I returned to the room, Brittany was live streaming with Savannah, curling her hair and saying, "Instant cabana my sister booked is supposedly super boring, just old ladies reading magazines. Can you help me reserve one at Palisade Beach? That's your usual spot, right?" I stood frozen in the doorway. Mom was applying sunscreen and said nothing. But moments later, she turned to me and gently asked, "Clara, why not check out the new spot? It is vacation after all." I didn't respond right away. I just turned and stepped into the bathroom, blasting the water so hard my hands went numb. Everything I had planned, every expense, every detail was being treated as disposable. Worse yet, I was being seen as uptight for trying to create something meaningful. And Brittany wasn't done. On the third night, as I was reworking the next day's itinerary to fit new suggestions from Savannah, she walked into my room holding a spa voucher. Savannah and I just booked hot stone massages at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I used the room's credit card since it was easier. Hope that's cool. I spun around. You? Used my card? Brittany shrugged. Well, you're the one who booked everything, right? And I'm super stressed, Clara. Massage is part of vacation too. Mom walked in just then, catching the last bit. But instead of telling Brittany to ask first, she just sighed. That's fine. I won't go to the spa tomorrow. Let the girls enjoy it. I stayed silent, not because I didn't know what to say, but because at that moment I understood. No matter how much I tried, every action would always be overshadowed by a never-ending pattern of indulgence. The fourth day in Santa Barbara, I woke up with a heavy heart. On the bedside table was the stack of receipts I had printed out the day before, prepaid bookings, dinner at the Bayfront restaurant, tickets to the Lotus Botanical Garden, and a tour of the chocolate workshop my mom once mentioned during a phone call last year. I had tried to keep the schedule flexible, but after 3 consecutive days of constant changes, I began to realize I wasn't just sacrificing my time, I was letting my wallet get drained uncontrollably. Around 10 a.m., I got a message from the hotel. Late cancellation fee, $120. Missed chocolate tour, non-refundable. I froze. That tour was the very first activity Mom picked when I sent her the list. I still remember her laughing and saying, "I'll probably end up bringing home a whole kilo of chocolate." But the night before, after Savannah invited Brittany to an artsy-style BBQ over in the Riverside neighborhood, my sister announced, "The tour sounds nice, but way too tour guidey. I want something natural, not sitting through 2 hours of someone talking about cocoa." Mom, soaking her feet in the hot water tub in our room, just said, "Yeah, tours can get tiring. I'm too old to keep up with the younger crowd." So the tour was canceled, with no warning, and of course, the deposit vanished like sea foam. Before I could process it, about 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A notification from the bank, $360, transaction at La Mer Spa. I snapped to attention. I hadn't booked any spa services for that morning. I rushed down to the hotel lobby and asked the front desk. The receptionist politely checked the system and confirmed. The charge was made under room 812, your room. The guests were Miss Brittany and someone named Savannah. A chill ran down my spine. I kept my composure and returned to the room. Brittany was stretched out on the bed, hair still damp, wearing a spa robe, scrolling her phone and giggling. "You used my card again?" I asked, my voice hoarse from holding in anger. "Well, it's our room," Brittany replied casually. "The spa charges to the room and I don't have a card of my own." I gave a flat smile. "And you think that's reasonable?" She shrugged. "You've been paying for everything anyway. Think of this as a spiritual contribution to the trip. I need self-care too, you know." I turned to Mom. She had just stepped out of the bathroom, drying her hair. "Did you know about this?" She hesitated. "I thought you gave her permission. Clara, you're doing well financially. Maybe you should cut Brittany some slack. She's still finding her footing." "And I'm the one being squeezed dry to help her find that footing, right?" The words burst out before I could stop them. The air in the room thickened. Brittany shot up, throwing her phone onto the bed. "Here we go again! It's always about money with you. You act like just because you pay for things, you get to control every detail." I didn't answer, I just stood there. Inside me, the slow burn of anger flared into fire. I had tried not to be petty. But when someone uses my money without asking and calls it a contribution, that line had been crossed. That afternoon, I opened my banking app to review the charges. Over $4,600 had been withdrawn in just 4 days, not including flights, birthday gifts, and unused bookings. I saw a note. "Savannah's birthday cocktail, $92. I said nothing else. I simply opened my laptop and canceled the family sunset photo session booked for the last day. Reasons stated: insufficient participants. That evening, while Brittany and Savannah partied in the Funk Zone Arts District, I had dinner with Mom at the hotel's small bistro. She ordered the salmon salad and white wine. I didn't eat. "I'm sorry if Brittany crossed a line," she said after a long silence. "But you know, she's still immature." I nodded. "The problem is, you're still calling it immaturity when she's 26. And I'm always the one who's supposed to be the strong one. I'm tired, Mom." She didn't reply, just quietly sipped her wine. I didn't say a word for the next 2 days. No complaints, no mention of the bills, no bringing up the last-minute canceled plans. I woke up early, quietly made coffee, then sat on the balcony, reading work emails until Mom and Brittany came out of their room. I thought I was trying to ease the tension, but in truth I was just preparing myself for something that deep down I already knew was coming. On Friday morning, I arranged a small brunch at a hillside cafe, one with lavender gardens and live jazz. I picked the exact table the waiter had promised the day before, for 3 Great Light Ocean View. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a light mimosa for Mom, and pre-ordered the peach tart, the dish she loved most during our Oregon trip last year. But 15 minutes passed, then 30. Just as I was about to take out my phone, Brittany showed up. Unannounced, alone, no cute dress, no low heels as planned, just jean shorts, a wrinkled t-shirt, and unbrushed hair. "When did you get here?" she asked, plopping into the seat across from me like nothing was wrong. I replied softly, 10:30. Where's Mom?" Brittany shrugged. "She said she wasn't feeling well, wanted to rest in the room." I frowned. She didn't text me anything. "She probably thought I'd tell you," Brittany said, eyes glued to her phone. I didn't say another word. The tart grew cold, the mimosa went flat, the jazz tune drifted by, but I couldn't remember a single note. That evening, when I returned to the hotel, I saw Mom and Brittany at the lobby bar, laughing over bright pink cocktails. I froze for a second, then walked over, trying to keep my voice even. "I thought you weren't feeling well." Mom hesitated. Brittany raised an eyebrow. "We just wanted a quick drink at the bar before heading back. No big deal." I sat down, eyes fixed on Mom. "You weren't going to say anything? That brunch was for you?" Mom sighed, setting down her glass. "Clara, you have to understand, this vacation doesn't have to be run like a work itinerary. I want to relax. Brittany does too." Something inside me cracked. I don't need everyone to follow a plan. I just want to feel like what I do matters. Brittany jumped in, her tone sharper than usual. Everything's always about you, booking reservations, managing schedules, watching costs, nagging. You call it caring, but it's just control. I laughed, not out of amusement, but because I couldn't hold it in anymore. Control? Try planning a 6-day trip, paying nearly $10,000 out of pocket, and then being told you're forcing things. Mom reached out and placed her hand on mine, but it wasn't gentle. She gave a firm squeeze, her eyes stern. Clara, you're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. If you can't handle being flexible, maybe it's best you take a break. Leave a few days early, let things cool down. I stood still. The breeze from the hallway drifted in, cold as the air around us. You're telling me to leave? Mom didn't answer, but her averted eyes said enough. Brittany pressed her lips together, visibly relieved. I nodded. All right, if that's what everyone wants. I left the bar, went up to my room, and packed in silence. I didn't toss anything. I didn't cry. Each shirt folded was like a quiet ritual for something long dead. The belief that I had a place of equal footing in this family. I left an envelope on the table. Inside was a printout of all the remaining bookings, the boat tour, the outdoor concert tickets, and the Italian dinner reservation for Sunday night. I listed each confirmation code, contact number, and backup notes. Every line felt like one last stitch sealing off what was once called a family vacation. Before checking out, I stopped by the front desk. I'd like to transfer room and spending authority to my mother, Margaret Ford. I'll cover all charges through the end of today. His front desk agent looked at me with quiet sympathy. I just gave a tired smile. It's all right. I know what I'm doing. At 3 a.m., I sat alone at LAX, waiting for the earliest flight back to Portland. I had no checked luggage, but I carried something much heavier, the feeling of being pushed out of something I had built entirely out of love. I landed back in Portland around 9 o'clock in the morning. A light drizzle hung in the air like a sheer veil, cold and damp, the complete opposite of Santa Barbara's sunshine. I wheeled my suitcase up the steps to my apartment, the keys jingling in a silence that felt almost cruel. The apartment was exactly as I'd left it. The dried flower vase on the table, still untouched, the leather jacket I'd forgotten still hanging on the hook. But I was no longer the woman who had excitedly folded clothes for the first family vacation in 10 years. I walked in, set down the suitcase without opening it, and sat right on the floor, back against the door. No lights, no curtains drawn. I just sat there, letting the emptiness wash over me. What hurt wasn't just my mother's final words. It was the sense of being cast out from a kind of love I had tried so hard to nurture. I didn't know what stung more, being loved the wrong way, or realizing I'd never truly been loved fairly. By noon, my phone rang. Rachel's name lit up, the college best friend who always told the truth no matter how sharp it cut. I thought about ignoring it, but then I realized, if I didn't talk to Rachel, I wouldn't talk to anyone at all. "You're back, right?" she said, skipping any greeting. "Yeah, 3 hours ago," I murmured. "Clara, what happened? Your mom just texted me saying you left halfway through the trip because of work stress?" I froze. "She texted you?" "Brittany, too. Said you were too sensitive and blew everything out of proportion." I let out a dry laugh. Of course they did. "Clara, tell me everything." So I did. No sugarcoating, no holding back. The 3-month planning, the canceled bookings, the unauthorized spa charge, the brunch no-show, and finally, my mother's words, "If you can't be flexible, maybe you should leave." Rachel was silent for a long moment. Then, in a firm tone, she said, "You didn't leave because you were too sensitive. You left because you were being taken advantage of." I closed my eyes. Her words dropped like a stone into still water, stirring up every emotion I'd buried, hurt, self-doubt, then anger. I kept thinking, maybe I was being too much, I whispered. I wanted things to go well. Maybe I expected too much. "Oh, Clara," Rachel cut in, "you expected people to appreciate your effort. That's not wrong. The problem is they took it for granted." I stayed quiet, gently biting my lip. Maybe I needed to hear this, especially from someone who didn't share my last name. I hate being made to feel selfish just because I said no. I said quietly. You're not selfish. You're the only one who understands what responsibility means. The rest of them, all they know is how to demand. Rachel said she'd come over right after work, and at exactly 6 p.m. she stood at my door with 2 mango smoothies and a bag full of my favorite Thai food. We sat on the floor under the soft kitchen light, no music, no phones. Did Brittany or your mom apologize? Rachel asked as I opened the sweet and sour chicken. I handed her my phone and showed her the messages. I hope you got home safely. We can talk when you're calmer. Brittany's upset you left early. She felt abandoned. Rachel blinked. Not a single apology, not one word of accountability, just their feelings. I nodded. They've always been like this, since we were kids. I'm allowed to carry the weight as long as they don't have to change. After dinner, Rachel pulled an envelope from her backpack. Here, don't freak out. I booked you a mini retreat at Cannon Beach. 2 days, 1 night, spa, reading lounge, hiking trails. No one to please but yourself. A real vacation. I looked at her, eyes stinging. Do I even deserve that? Clara, you deserve a break more than anyone I know. 2 days after I returned to Portland, on one of April's rare sun-drenched afternoons, my phone rang. The screen lit up with a familiar name, Margaret, Mom. I stared at it for a few seconds, then hit decline. For the first time in my life, I didn't have the courage to hear her voice. 30 minutes later, the phone buzzed again. This time it was Brittany. I powered it off completely. Not out of anger, but because I wasn't ready to hear another sentence starting with, "You're too sensitive," or "It's not what you think." That evening, while I was repotting my lavender plant on the balcony, a message from an unknown number popped up. Clara, it's Mom. Brittany and I are back in Portland. Can we see you? I froze, mid-mation, hands still covered in soil. I reread the words. The last sentence didn't carry commands or blame, just a request. Simple. Human. I didn't reply. But the next morning, just as I rinsed out my coffee cup, the doorbell rang. Through the glass door, I saw my mother standing there in a light beige sweater, holding a paper bag with the Tartine Bakery logo. Brittany was behind her, eyes cast down, neither of them wearing makeup or their usual polished outfits. My mother looked up and caught my gaze through the door, then softly said, "I brought your favorite peach tart." I opened the door. We sat around my small kitchen table, the same table that had witnessed all those late nights I spent planning that trip. The peach tart was still warm. I wasn't hungry, but with the first bite, a strange feeling stirred in me. Something familiar, yet distant. My mother spoke first. "Clara, your sister and I came back earlier than planned. Without you, everything fell apart." I stayed quiet, waiting. She drew a deep breath. Those last 2 days, I didn't know where we were supposed to go. Restaurants kept asking for reservation numbers. Brittany couldn't find the folder you left, even though it was right on the table. For the Sunday boat tour, I got there on time, but they wouldn't let me on without my name on the confirmation. I just sat at the dock and watched the others board. Brittany lowered her head, gripping her glass tightly. My mom continued, voice softer. The hotel wouldn't allow room charges anymore because the payment info was canceled after you left. I had to borrow Brittany's friend's credit card, Savannah's. I looked up. Savannah lent you her card? Brittany blushed. No, she gave me cash. I used it for the spa and taxi. Mom covered the rest. She looked up at me for the first time, eyes red. I know you never asked me to pay you back, but this time, I will. All of it. My mom nodded, her hand closing over mine. Clara? I'm sorry for pushing you away, for not standing by you when you needed me. I thought you were strong, that little things wouldn't hurt you, but I forgot. Even the strongest people need love and protection. I still said nothing. Brittany clenched her fists, then blurted out, "You know what? The night you left, I posted a bunch of party pics with Savannah on Instagram. Everyone commented, wow, Brittany's living the dream, but when I looked at them again, you were the only one actually trying. I was just showing off." I exhaled slowly and set down my spoon. You and Mom Don't have to do anything for me, I said, staring at the space between us on the table. Just admit one thing. That trip was for Mom, and everything fell apart because no one appreciated what I did. My mom squeezed my hand tighter. I know, and I want to make it right. If you'll let me. I didn't answer right away, but for the first time I looked both of them in the eye without bitterness rising in my chest. That afternoon, as they were leaving, my mom turned back at the door. I'm planning to call a family therapist. Even if you don't want to join, I'll still go. I paused. In all 31 years, I had never heard my mother admit she needed help, but today, she said those words. 2 weeks after that meeting, Mom sent me a calendar link for an appointment with a family therapist named Dr. Leslie Greer. She noted in her message, just come for one session. If you don't feel it's necessary, I won't push. I opened the clinic's website in silence. No frills, no forced language, just a space filled with natural light, round sofas, and the words, healing doesn't begin with an apology. It begins with the courage to face it. I went to the first session. Brittany and Mom were already there. They sat one seat apart. Not the usual shoulder-to-shoulder closeness like during our spa trips in Santa Barbara. The air felt hesitant, but this time it was the quiet of waiting, not avoidance. Dr. Greer was a woman in her mid-50s with a warm voice, rarely interrupting, yet every question made us stop and think. Clara, what made you feel the greatest sense of loss on that trip? I answered instantly without thinking, becoming the outsider in something I created. Brittany looked down at the floor. Mom gave a small nod, and for the first time in years, no one jumped to argue or justify. In the second session, Brittany apologized. Not the empty sorry if I hurt you kind, but I treated your love as something guaranteed, and I spent it like it was someone else's money. I didn't forgive her right away, but I admitted. Those words made me feel heard. We met every week for 3 months. Some sessions were filled with nothing but tears. In one, Mom cried while talking about the pressure of raising 2 daughters alone and the fear that if she didn't make up for it with Brittany, she'd fall apart. Another time, I stood up mid-session and said loudly, "Did no one ever think I could break too?" But over time, as layer after layer of emotion peeled back, we started to understand each other better. Mom began to change. She no longer called me the strong one without thinking. Instead, she asked, "Are you okay?" A simple question I had never heard her ask with sincerity in over 30 years. Brittany surprised me even more. She asked Mom to cancel her secondary credit card. "If I can't afford it, I won't use it," she said. And she kept her word. She took a part-time job at a small bookstore, managing on her own, even though the pay wasn't much. But I saw a change in her gaze, less defiance, more accountability. 3 months after our first therapy session, Mom suggested, "What if we went somewhere for a few days? Nothing fancy, nothing forced, just a quiet place to breathe together again." I smiled. As long as there's no DJ and no VIP cabanas. We chose the Columbia River Gorge, a mountainous area a few hours' drive from Portland, known for its waterfalls, pine forests, and peaceful hiking trails. This time, I didn't plan everything. Mom picked the lodging, a small wooden cabin near a stream. Brittany made the grocery list and did the shopping. My only job was to bring the trail maps and make morning coffee. The trip was simple, with no packed schedule. We sat on the cabin steps in the morning, holding mugs of hot chocolate, reading books, and listening to the wind rustle through the trees. Mom shared stories from her youth. Brittany pressed fallen leaves into her journal. And I, learned that I didn't need to control every detail to feel loved. On our last night, Mom poured 3 glasses of wine and sat on a wooden chair by the campfire. "I know there will never be a perfect trip," she said, staring into the flames. "But if I could do it over, I wouldn't stay silent when my daughter needed to be defended." Brittany raised her glass. "And I wouldn't choose a spa over the wildflower tour you planned." I laughed and lifted my own glass. "And I won't ignore my own feelings just to keep the peace." We clinked glasses, nothing overly ceremonial, but just enough to know this time I wasn't just a shadow behind their smiles. I was Clara, seen, heard, and respected. My story isn't about a failed vacation, it's about a journey of awakening. I used to think love meant giving unconditionally, sacrificing silently. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away to be respected. Families don't change overnight, but change begins when we stop enduring and start speaking up. I learned to set boundaries, not to create distance, but to connect in a healthier way. And for the first time, I no longer felt like I was standing alone. What do you think about Clara's journey? Who did you relate to most in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel to discover more heartfelt and powerful family stories.